Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome virtually and in person to Immersed inside the Immersion Lab. The Immersion Lab is inside of MIT.nano. It's a shared and central facility to enable the MIT community and our collaborators around the world to experience AR and VR, to develop technologies to support gaming, big data interaction, visualization, haptics, the metaverse. Today is the first of our four-part sequence in tutorials. What is the metaverse, or what are the on-ramps? How do we get into the metaverse? What are the tools that we have at MIT.nano inside of the Immersion Lab, both the physical space, the digital resources, and the talent, the staff that we have to support your education and research interests. So I would like to introduce one of our stars for today. I couldn't find Talis this morning. I think he's running a little bit late. Talis is our AR and VR gaming big data technologist, but I have a great stand-in for him. I would like to introduce Rex X. Mr. X, it's all yours. Take it away, and we'll be on and chatting to answer questions as you go. But Mr. X, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Brian, and hello, everybody. Happy to be here today. My name is Rex X, the new and improved version of Talis Rex. I am unique in that I am a fully fabricated virtual human avatar that was created here at MIT.nano's Immersion Lab. I was designed using a set of tools that you will be covering today, all the way from Unreal's Metahuman creator to NVIDIA's OMNIVERSE platform. The workshop today will be about the metaverse and some of the core components that you will be able to participate in this ever-growing digital ecosystem. And by the end of the workshop, you will be able to create your own version X using Metahuman Creator and animate the mouth movements like I am doing right now. So with that being said, I will transition over to the real me so he can get things started.
So hello, everybody. Welcome to the Immersed in the Metaverse. My name is Talis Rex, and I am the technologist here in the Immersion Lab at MIT.nano. So I'm very happy to see you all here. As you can see, the title is Immersed in the Metaverse. So as you probably already know, the metaverse concept has been increasing in popularity, so much so that large corporations are starting to change their agenda, rebrand their name, like Facebook and Meta. So I kind of wanted to dabble in and start the conversation of the metaverse, what it means, and to explore kind of how academia and industry are branching inside this network. So I'm just going to go through here, and we all might have our own ideas of kind of what the metaverse could be or what it is, but I wanted to instead zoom in onto some of the applications that are currently being developed to kind of build out the metaverse. It is possible that through these technological advances and steps, a more immersive and applicable a metaverse will become. So the goal of this series is to provide you with a set of tools that will enable you to investigate the metaverse more closely and perhaps contribute your own, in this case, character, or rather your designs in these virtual worlds. So this is a four-part series about the fabrication of human-like avatars and to create a workflow that can be adapted through these techniques. We will start today talking about the fabrication of high fidelity virtual avatars and a couple of the AI-based applications that are used to help expedite the creative process. The next series will be encompassing motion tracking and animation, so you can essentially drive your avatar using real actions and pre-recorded animations. And then we will move through to haptic technology in the area where we can create and feel kind of the virtual world around us. We have some things set up, some do-it-yourself projects that will encompass that series. And then following that, we will explore kind of how all of these different concepts can be integrated together to create this virtual world. So today's focus will be essentially on the AI components, the artificial intelligence components of avatar creation that utilizes augmented reality, artificial intelligence and machine learning models to help expedite the creative process. So this is just an overview of what we'll be going through today. We'll start off by just making sure everybody's on the same page of the metaverse, and then we'll jump right into some of the applications. We're going to be working on 3 applications primarily in this course. We'll be doing the Metahuman creator, OMNIVERSE audio two-face, and then of course Unreal Engine to put all these pieces together. After I give you a quick overview of each application, we will then transition to kind of a take-home lab exercise where you'll be able to see the process and the steps that it takes to replicate something that you just saw at the very beginning from Rex X, and create your own virtual avatar and follow along with this tutorial series. And then at the end, we will leave some time for discussion, questions, comments, and would love to kind of hear your thoughts as you guys kind of continue on through the metaverse journey. So what is the metaverse? Now, the metaverse originally was populated through the novel Snow Crash by Neal Stephenson in 1992. And this was later expanded on through notable novels like Ready Player One. And so the metaverse was described as a digital world that exists beyond the one in which we live in. Now, you can probably already sense there's some kind of ambiguity here as we hear, a lot of people saying, virtual worlds, the metaverse is VR or is augmented reality. However, some can argue that these are just pieces of the metaverse scattered around, and we could put these all together. And some people say, it's already here. For examples like Fortnite or World of Warcraft, or all of these different, real digital worlds that you can participate in, and they have their own economy, they have their own way of, their environment and structure and socialization. And so there are different components to keep in mind. I would argue that this may be an oversimplification of what the metaverse is. And so with that being said, this is coming from Matthew Ball, who's pretty invested in the area, where he's kind of described different components of the metaverse and how all of these components together are really what make up the metaverse in its whole entirety. So of course, there's interchangeable tools, there's payment services, content and services with additional assets, hardware. So with all of these different components combined, you get what we call the metaverse. And so the metaverse is really now emerging with all of these different pieces being innovated and created. So it really is truly an exciting time to start contributing to it and be a part of its movement. And of course, it will be impossible to kind of digest all of these concepts in a 1-hour seminar. So what we're going to do is we're going to take little small pieces of these components and build off of that. We will be mostly focusing on the interchangeable tools and content, and later on some of the virtual platforms and hardware that are also being developed. And we'll talk about that later on in the next series. So during today's talk, I will be kind of focusing on kind of the experiences and the building blocks that we use to build up the metaverse. This is a quote that Microsoft released a statement saying, "As we develop for a metaverse-powered future, we can have a foundational belief in open ecosystems where identities and content easily flow between experiences, regardless of the platform, and should not be controlled by a platform broker." So what I really want to transition here, and what I want to keep as the premise of today's discussion, is this easily flow between experiences. Everybody kind of has their own development platform that they like to use for 3D pipeline. And so being able to integrate amongst them and have them work collaboratively together is really what will create the metaverse in its entirety. So here are just a couple of metaverse companies, if you will, that are taking initiative in this landscape. And of course, this is not a finite list. There's always new companies growing, but I just wanted to give you a little bit of an example of where some of these industries are. And for social networking, of course, you have Facebook, gaming, and VR, you have HP. So if you're ever interested in kind of the leading companies that are exercising, within this space, this is just a list that might be helpful. So the three applications that I mentioned are going to be Metahuman Creator. This is essentially going to be for the character creation aspect of things. This is developed by Epic's Epic Games. And so this falls really nicely into Unreal Engine. We'll then talk about Audio Two-Face. This is a NVIDIA's Omniverse platform. I will introduce kind of NVIDIA's Omniverse and kind of what it is, what makes it special. And Audio Two-Face is just one application that can be used within your kind of development pipeline. And then Unreal Engine is, essentially the game engine that holds all of these pieces together. And I'll explain a little bit more of what a game engine is once we get to that. So for those who don't know, Metahuman is a application that was created by Epic and released this year. Just a little bit about Metahuman. It is a creator cloud stream web-based application. It is data-driven and promotes a rapid method for users to be able to sculpt, transform, and streamline their character creation workflow. It is completely free, as well as NVIDIA's Omniverse and Unreal Engine. And it is able to integrate nicely with these, including other applications like Maya, Blender, as well as other 3D modeling software that you might be familiar with. Now, if you do go to this link right here, as long as you have an Epic Games account, you will actually be able to load this and get right in. And I will show you just a quick intro video that they released this year, just to show you the quality and the fidelity of these avatars that you're able to make.
I am a metahuman, the next generation of digital human powered by Unreal Engine. Metahumans are high-fidelity digital characters created by you, the user, on our new content creation platform, Metahuman Creator. I am fully rigged, ready for animation and motion capture, allowing you to work in context. With everything running live in Unreal Engine, my motion works seamlessly
on other characters. I have 8 levels of detail and have been tested on a wide range of hardware platforms, from feature film to mobile. If you're interested in learning about my animation rig or high-fidelity deformations, built on Control Rig, the new strand-based hair system via the Groom component, or how everything is tied together and animated in Sequencer, then have a look under the hood in this project. This is just a glimpse of things to come.
All right, so Metahuman Creator, just a quick kind of 6 points that might be useful for you. It is data-driven software system. It's a rapid method for integrating between Maya, CloudStream, web-based, things that I've pretty much already stated. And the prefabricated Metahuman presets, which you will see in a second, are kind of the foundation in which you'll be working off of. So we will kind of see the Metahuman live in a second, but to move further into kind of the NVIDIA Omniverse space, which is the second platform we'll be using. Which is an extensible open platform for virtual collaboration and real-time physically accurate simulations. Now, because this is a modular platform, its goal is to bring all of these separate applications that creators use and bring them together to make a more seamless workflow and efficient development strategy. Now, it is free and open source. You have quite a bit of core extensions involved that I'll show you in a second, and you can do some live collaboration. So if you, for example, are working with 3D modeling software and you have another person working on animations, you'll actually be able to work on the same format in the same kind of file together in real time, non-destructively. And really the nuts and bolts of the NVIDIA's Omniverse platform is this thing called USD. And the USD stands for the Universal Scene Description. So the Universal Scene Description is truly the foundation of NVIDIA's Omniverse. It was developed by Pixar, and was primarily used to create as you have a lot of animators working on complex scenes, they needed a system and a way of allowing hundreds of creators to be able to seamlessly work on this project collaboratively, regardless of the platform or what they're using. So USD files contain data about 3D graphic elements such as, scene layout, geometry, even model appearance of models and animations. And this later on, they actually released this and open source, and it became the first publicly available software that addresses the need to robustly and scalably interchange 3D scenes. So the Omniverse is the first application to be built entirely around USD. So as you can see, users who use Unreal Engine and those with Revit can all work on the same data at the same time, and they can do this live across the world, which is pretty remarkable. And you don't really need to worry about which platform your collaborator is working on. So this is kind of the exchange of NVIDIA. This includes all of the applications that involves and all the connectors. Now, applications are additional elements that allow you to expand on your models and do some really creative workflow ideas. You'll see the audio two-face in a minute, and then the connectors here are essentially what you need to install to allow your application of choice to be integrated within the system. Now, this is a growing list of applications and a growing list of connectors. So if you do not see, the application that you use here, just know that, that these are currently being developed. And if you install this today, you will actually be a part of their kind of alpha developer program. So it's still very early on, and they're really interested in kind of developers to expand and to really utilize what they're proficient at. And so we have Epic Games here. Let me go here. We have Unreal Engine. We have Maya, 3ds Max, even Radical Live Omniverse. So you have kind of some unique applications that can be integrated pretty seamlessly using the USD format. Today, during the course, we'll be actually focusing on one application, the Omniverse Audio Two-Face, and one connector. And that would be the Epic Games Unreal Engine connector, but it will depend on what version you use. So right now they currently support 4.25, 4.26, and 4.27. So a little bit about Audio Two-Face. Now, Audio Two-Face is essentially a program that is a combination of AI-based technologies that generate facial motion and lip sync that is derived entirely from an audio source. So this allows the user to select a specific face shape for animation training and to impose this on the default face. And this allows the user more control to inject specific emotional expressions onto the performance, and it's a very fast workflow. It's essentially adding an audio file that you pre-record, or you can do it live, and it will do its best to push the drivers of the animation. And this is the interface, and you will see this in a second. And so on the AI side of things, the program was built using a TensorRT engine that optimizes the neural networks for any hardware running the software. Now, NVIDIA's TensorRT is an SDK for high-performance deep learning influence. It includes a deep learning inference optimizer and runtime that delivers low latency and high throughput for deep learning inference applications. Now, there's a lot of resources that go in depth into how this whole system works. But for this course in itself, we're going to be just introducing some of these applications and really, focus on, the fabrication and getting that into your virtual avatar. But we will supply a lot of resources that will be able to kind of give you a little bit more information on how these applications are working. And so lastly here, we will just download Unreal Engine if you guys aren't familiar with this already. This is kind of the view that you get when you initialize a new scene. So Unreal Engine is a game engine, of course, and the core functionality of game engines is typically including, it's a render engine. So it wants to be a render for 2D and 3D graphics. You can include the physics engine, physics and collision detection. You can add sound and scripting, animations, memory management, to video supporting for cinematics. So this is the application that we'll be using. And the reason why I chose this is we do use Unreal Engine quite a bit in the Immersion Lab alongside Unity, but these applications are powerful, and they're really increasing its popularity in the development for not only video games, but also VR and AR experiences. We're using it for virtual production, physics-based simulations, and architectural designs. So with the overview of the applications, we can kind of go through the workflow of how to set up your own avatar and get that into Unreal Engine while also adding kind of the facial rigging to be applied to your avatar. So because this is a course, there are a few applications that you might need to download. Now, some of these will take longer than others. Quixel Bridge is just, I'll mention that in a second, but all it does is transfer your Metahuman into Unreal Engine. But the Omniverse platform, you'll be able to download it here. And then all of the connectors and the plugins are essentially their own separate downloads. So if you wanted only audio to face, you can download that. If you needed just 3 or 4 connectors, you would download those, in kind of isolation. Metahuman, you actually don't need to download it. So it is kind of that cloud-based platform that allows you to stream, or you can actually just gain access to the cloud platform without having to download. And Unreal Engine, this will probably be your longest download, depending on what version you're looking at. But just keep in mind, this can take some time. With Unreal Engine, if you are using Unreal Engine 5.0, I believe Quixel Bridge is already built inside of that. But if you're using kind of 4.27, something that I'm using, you will have to do a separate download, but it's pretty easy in terms of syncing it up with your own Unreal Engine account or Epic Games account.
Talis, just a quick comment. If you can say something about Mac compatibility, it was one of the questions that came up.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So here, as you can see, the specifications, we have the Windows operating system, NVIDIA's graphics card, 25 gigabytes of storage. And however, with Metahuman, you can use this on your Mac, you can open it in your Mac, but with things like Omniverse and kind of that integration, it is kind of a Windows platform. So as far as I know, Mac OS is not supported with NVIDIA Omniverse, but definitely let me know if things have changed, if you guys are able to gain access from that. But from my research, it looks like Mac OS will not be compatible, unfortunately. All right, so just a quick workflow. So essentially, you start things off with creating your avatar in Metahuman Creator. Once you do that, you then create your own Unreal Engine project. So this is after you download. You will then, once you have your avatar created and you have your Unreal project open, you use the bridge to export the Metahuman to the appropriate file. And I'll show you how to do that in a second. Once you have NVIDIA's Omniverse already installed, you then can open up Audio to Face and start working inside that. Now, what you will get from that is essentially a USD file that you will then be able to transfer into Unreal Engine, where you then can apply it to your Metahuman within the Unreal Engine sequencer. And the sequencer just allows cameras to change perspective. You can do some animations there. And so you could put all of these moving parts together. All right. So character creator in Metahuman. Now, this I will open it if we do have time in the end, but the interface is very simple. Once you log in, you'll actually see kind of a sculpting user interface. You can change skin tones, body shape, and so what you're dealing with is you're dealing with prefabricated a library of prefabricated virtual avatars, and you can mix and match depending on the needs of what you want the avatar to look like. And so because these are images and data taken from real people and then used for those virtual avatars, there is a limitation. And now Metahuman is in its beta phase as well. However, because of the high fidelity of the avatars that it's able to produce, it seemed pretty applicable, and it's free. And so being able to transition this into Unreal Engine will give you all kind of the opportunity to see that quality. Once you are in here, I will share you in a second, there's different levels of detail that you can install and download your avatar in. And so it depends on kind of the computation of your computer and the hardware. So if you use, the video that I used, I did use an 8K resolution avatar for that sequence. But if you wanted to do a 2K or 1K resolution, you can always do that while decreasing the level of detail to kind of fit your scene, or if you didn't need, every strand of the hair to be visualized. And so this is the Unreal Engine. If you guys are unfamiliar, this will take you step by step. Once you download Unreal Engine, you actually have this Epic Games launcher here on the top left. And this will allow you to install different engine versions that I was mentioning. You have the the 4.26 all the way to the 5.0. And so if you first initially download it, you're not going to see anything right here. You will need to press this plus button to add your new download. Again, this will take a while, so you do want quite a bit of storage space available. Some of these can rack up to 12 to 15 gigabytes because you're really compiling all of the necessary components of the Unreal Engine. And so feel free to do this whenever you guys get a chance, but you don't need to install any additional plugins other than the NVIDIA's Omniverse. Once you do that, you then launch things up, and then you can create your new project. So you pretty much just set your directory path to a particular file location, and here you can choose what kind of project category you want. For this, we were doing games, but you can also do film, television for virtual production. You can do architecture and engineering if you want to design kind of visualizations and kind of stylized renders. And then you can do kind of automotive and productive design and manufacturing. So I do want to stress, Unreal Engine has gone far from kind of just video game development. And I think, that's the premise of the metaverse, where it's not just a video game, but there's all these kinds of different components that make it a lot more real and a lot more immersive. So feel free to choose whichever one fits your category, and then you'll be able to kind of navigate through the viewport there. Once you choose your category, you then will select a template. And this will just kind of define what you want your application to be built for, or how you want it to be built. So you can just automatically do a blank template. This will just be a base kind of floor with nothing really in it other than kind of an atmosphere, some HDRI lighting, and just a blank slate. But if you wanted to build for virtual reality, if you wanted to do a first person or handheld AR, this is another kind of avenue where you can investigate. And so, I do want to just stress, a lot of these are customizable and have the ability to meet your needs. You don't need to follow along, step by step in mine. If you want to kind of break things, test things out, I very much encourage you to do that. There's a lot that can be done within this space, so feel free to explore. And once you do do choose kind of your blank template or whatever template you want, you will then come across this project settings. And this will kind of allow you to do any ray tracing or kind of the quality of your experience. And then you also include your location of where you want your project to be stored and the name of it. You can also, choose the target platform that you're looking to build it for, and then, with or without starter content. Sometimes the starter content can include some really, necessary assets that you can incorporate into your scene, but again, that's not required. And on that note, if you do go back to your Epic Games client, you can actually choose Marketplace, and then you can dive into some additional assets that are already open source and are available online. You have a lot of content creators creating assets or environments that you can actually add on to your project, some for free, some for purchase. So, a lot of these virtual worlds are not built by, one person directly. They're sometimes taking assets, sounds, and different models from other artists to incorporate into their scene. And so this is Quixel Bridge. This is what essentially you will see once you download it. And here's just a video showing you kind of the interface. So what you'll have is you'll have kind of a Metahumans tab. And these are all of the presets that are already defined in the Metahuman. These are the presets that you will be able to mix and match to define your avatar. And again, this is a growing list as well that will allow you to kind of investigate further. And if there's one skin tone or feature that might be better suited for you, this is kind of where you grab that raw data. But if I continue on, you'll actually see your My Metahumans tab. And that is the tab in which you create your own virtual avatars. These are your own custom avatars. So with T-Human here, or RexX, if you will, you can go to your download settings, and this will kind of allow you to choose how you want it to be downloaded. Of course, you can do an FBX and OBJ, but if you are bringing it to Unreal, just remember that you do need to choose the U assets and source assets here. And these right here are the level of details. So you can decide what level of detail you want moved into your project. And then you can also do the export settings. And this right here, you download your model first, and then you export it to Unreal Engine. So export target is Unreal Engine. However, this is suitable for 3ds Max and Maya, Unity, Blender. I haven't experimented with every single one of these, but if one of these are interesting to you, feel free to explore and see if this exports. And we would love to kind of hear from you to see kind of how things went. And of course, the engine version that you choose. And now the plugin location, this will actually already install the plugin for you if you choose in the correct plugin location. The plugin location is typically standardized, so it will be mostly wherever you installed Unreal Engine. You have you go into that folder, you then go into Engine and plugins, and that's the directory file that you will choose from. And then the default project is essentially where you created your new project. So for example, if I just created a new one called Blank Slate, this is the new Blank Slate project that I will be directing it to. And if you don't already have the plugin installed, instead of this installed button here, it will say install plugin. So it will guide you through the necessary steps for you to actually export your model. And so once you have that downloaded, you then can export. And as long as you have your Unreal Engine project that you created and that you synced up to that directory, if that project is open and you press export, it will export to Unreal Engine right there and then. And then you go back to your Unreal Engine project and your Metahuman will be there. And so that's kind of getting your Metahuman into Unreal Engine, but now we want to start adding kind of the audio to face program. How do we use the audio file to manipulate the avatar's mouth movements? And so this is the Audio Two-Face platform. And there are a number of different ways that you can get the audio onto your Metahuman avatar. One example would be importing your Metahuman's USD face into kind of this viewport, and then you can bridge the drivers from this kind of neutral face to your Metahuman. And then it will do a really good job in defining the lips and the eyes and the deformation in the skin, for example. There is also kind of a quicker approach where if you go into kind of Omniverse, you'll see it here. If you go into Omniverse's kind of local host, they have their own or their server rather, they have their own kind of user template. And this
the beige hue on the waters of the lock impressed all.
This just does a generic kind of frame and skeletal mesh that I ended up using for Rex X. And so here's just kind of an example of how things work. So this will be ready as soon as you download it and launch the application. This is actually the first thing you'll see.
The beige hue on the waters of the lock impressed all, including the French queen, before she heard that symphony again, just as young Arthur wanted.
And so right here is where you import the audio file. Now you can do this live and you can record this within your own mic. And that's what I did for Rex X. And so this is all customizable. You can, you can add your own audio file there. Down here during this post-processing, this is kind of where you can start adding and tweaking the facial features. If you want, your upper face to be more smooth, or you want the mask level to just be halfway and you just want to move around the lips, this is one way of doing it. And keep that in mind as well. And here I just navigate through, I just show some of the models in the hierarchy, and then within the server, you can jump into, this file directory. It's pretty deep in there. There's quite a bit in here. But once you have this male kind of base skeleton here, you then drag that in, and this will be kind of your skeletal USD mesh, if you will, that you'll end up using for your virtual avatar later on in Unreal Engine.
The beige hue on the waters of the lock impressed all, including the French queen, before she heard that symphony again, just as young Arthur wanted.
So as you can see, he's actually not moving yet. You do need to go to A2 Audio Two-Face's data conversion. You choose the head, the water type version, and then you choose the neutral, which we just added. Once you do that, you set up the blend.
Beige hue on the waters.
You set up the blend shape. And now this is important because the blend shape essentially, fixes things together in terms of orientation of the movement and the localization. Now this can be customized as well. So if you did end up putting your own Metahuman avatar into this viewport, you can actually use these poses, and you can get a little bit more precise on where your own avatar's lips and eyes are. Every face can be different in that sense. And so you can fully customize this as well. But for the sake of this tutorial and just to streamline it a little bit better, we just did the setup blend shape solver, and then you'll see the next steps. We'll just export that.
The beige hue on the waters of the lock impressed all, including the French queen, before she heard that symphony again, just as young Arthur wanted.
And here's me just changing some of the properties there. And then once you're done there, you essentially go to A2D data conversion and you export as USD skeletal animation. And this is that USD file format that you will then be able to bring into Unreal Engine because you have that plugin installed. and it will export as a USD. So feel free to put that anywhere you want. All right. And lastly, you kind of put it all together. And so this is after I bridged the Metahuman into Unreal Engine. So I've already exported it. And that's essentially all that I've done thus far. I then include my avatar into the scene. And you might place him in the scene and he doesn't have any hair. And here you can actually edit the level of detail. So for that level of detail, -1, you don't have it, but for 0, you know, it's right there. And here you'll be able to see the hair. There are a few plugins that might be required for you to see hair strands and get your Metahuman in. When you export your Metahuman into Unreal Engine will already recognize that. And on the bottom right, it will say, you need these plugins. And then if you just do accept all, it will install all of them, and then it will do a quick reset. That's essentially one component that you might need to visualize your avatar with good textures and materials. And so here I just put them in the middle of the scene. And here you are. So it's really that easy. I do kind of create the cinematics. You actually don't see it, unfortunately, but I'm just creating a new sequencer. And this new sequencer will allow you to pretty much just drag your avatar inside the sequencer window, which I do here. And then you have 2 levels. So you have a body, and this will include your Metahuman's control rig, which we will focus a little bit more on next series when we talk about motion and movement. We will use some pre-existing animations, but we'll also do some motion capture just to show you the capabilities of both the Immersion Lab and kind of the quality that we can place into Metahuman. And then for the face, it does have its own facial control board that I will talk about at the end to make things a little bit more, I would say, you know, seamless or you know, better quality. You might have noticed that in Rex X when he's talking. The quality there is a little bit different than the quality that you saw in the Metahuman intro video. But, you know, that could be due to continued manual rigging that you do after you kind of get your base audio two-face USD skeleton inside. So that would be kind of the foundation, and then you would revisit it you know, either in Maya, it might be easier in Maya, but you can also do it in Unreal Engine to manually rig the character's face a little bit better. And don't forget, you do add the audio file separately because the skeletal mesh is only the skeleton.
The beige hue on the waters of the loch impressed all.
Sorry, the skeleton mesh is just the skeleton animation. That's separate from the audio file. So in order for you to match those both, you need the skeleton and you need the audio file separately.
Including the French Queen, before she heard that symphony again, just as young Arthur wanted.
So I just went ahead and played the audio, but you can import it here. And of course, the mouth doesn't move yet. The beige hue
on the waters of the loch
file. So here you can see the control board, and I'll show you just an example at the end, but you can actually just get rid of that. For me, I got rid of the face in itself, but you actually just want to get rid of the Metahuman control, the facial control board. And you can add that again. I think I add it here. And if you add track, you will see face. Fortunately, it's not coming up right now, but you will see face, and there it is. And then when you press that plus button, you'll be able to add kind of the audio file that we imported into Unreal Engine from Audio to Face. And so what it's looking for there is, I do apologize, it's not showing you the options, but when you do press that plus, it's going to be looking for a facial animation. And that is going to be the USD that you exported from Audio to Face. So it's a super simple way of just being able to match that skeleton animation to the facial rig of your character. And right here is kind of what you see here is the control rig. Again, we'll talk a little bit about this later, but this is already embedded into your Metahuman, which is really, really nice. So you could customize animation this. You don't need to do mocap or anything like that, but just an option.
So Talis, just making sure that so you have the time check. It is 11:15, so just so you can time yourself according.
Yes, awesome. So on that note, we are actually in the tail end of this. And so this is kind of the lab homework. If you want, you would, kind of go through these steps, create your Metahuman avatar, download some of these applications like NVIDIA's OMNIVERSE. And I really do urge you to explore, because some of it is not just for avatar creation. Although this class is for kind of this creation of fabricated virtual avatars, you can use this for so many other things. They have robotic simulations all the way to architectural design. So definitely experiment, see what is out there. And if you're interested in another component, reach out to the Immersion Lab. We're more than happy to kind of, work with you to set something up. And so let's see what else I have. So again, this is just the manual adjustment. So once you have the foundation of your avatar skeletal mesh talking throughout, you also have an opportunity to fine tune those facial movements a little bit better manually using some of these control rigs that are already created. So it is very, very nice. Unreal Engine, you're more than welcome to do that, but there are other software applications that might be better for this manual representation. And that's the beauty of USD. Let's say you want to do this in Maya instead, you just bring that to Maya and then you bring it back to Unreal Engine. So this is kind of that fluidity that I wanted to share with you guys, so that all of these different applications can be integrated as one. Everybody has their own kind of set of tools that they like to use. And instead of saying, you can't use that, you have to use this, it kind of embraces all of those different applications all to work into one. So with that said, that's about it. So the next Immerse series will be taking kind of that avatar that you created and add motion in immersive experiences. So if you didn't already, we will just go through the last remaining steps of adding the facial rig to the character. If you had any trouble there, we will then sync the facial rigging with the audio sequence that you saw me do in that last step. After that, we will then do some full body animations using preset animations that are free online through that marketplace of Unreal Engine. And then I will also show you kind of the motion tracking integration to Metahuman that we use here in the Immersion Lab, just to add on to that motion. So I hope you guys learned a lot. I know this is a lot of information to take in. 3D pipelines are not simple, but I hope you got a little bit of a better idea on how these virtual worlds are being designed and created. And hopefully you can make your own virtual X. So thank you, everybody. And now we'll leave some time for discussions.
Talis, thank you. It's in the virtual and the physical applause there. So we are getting close to the hour. Folks, if you have some questions, and we've been trying to chat them along the way, we will, as long as you've registered, please do so. We can email the chat. We couldn't figure out how to get it so everybody could download. But as Talis said, this is the first in a 4-part sequence. So you have some homework if you want. And then next time we'll connect on motion. But with some time left, go ahead and either raise your hand or chat a question.
And I do see one of these questions, is there a preference for using audio to face instead of Unreal's live link face? There are, other applications that do facial rigging as well. The reason why I did audio to face and not live link is I believe Unreal's live link, you do need a Apple phone, for example. I don't have one, so I did kind of go through a different alternative. However, there are a lot of other applications that allow you to do very similar things. And I just wanted to investigate Omniverse's apps a little bit more. I'm hearing really great things, so that's just one example as well.
So I think with that, Talis, again, thank you very much for sort of the both the overview, the tutorial, and when you see him, let Mr. X, Rex X, know that we look forward to seeing him as well. But yeah,
will do. He might even make another appearance. You never know.
You never know. Well, everybody, have a good remainder of your day. Stay safe, and thank you from the Immersion Lab.
Take care, everybody.